I'm Liz Van Vliet. Welcome to Being Indispensable, the podcast for executive and personal assistants. If, like me, you want to become indispensable to your manager, then this is the place where you'll get the tips and techniques and industry insights that will help you achieve exactly that. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Being Indispensable. This week it's just going to be a very short solo episode. I am still over in Palo Alto. If you have been following my Instagram action or my Facebook page, Being Indispensable, go and find it, you will see that I have been away from Australia for the last couple of weeks. The first week was down in San Diego at a social media marketing conference. And this last week, I have been in Palo Alto, which is just south of San Francisco, if you're not familiar with it. It is also referred to as an area that makes up what's called Silicon Valley. I wanted to just bring you a short episode this week because as I'm away from home, I am not going to be able to bring my usual high level of sophisticated audio to your listening ears. So today is going to be, well, it's a form of road ramblings, but today it's actually garden ramblings because I'm sitting in a beautiful garden called the Elizabeth Gamble Garden, which is on Waverley Street in Palo Alto, if you want to Google Maps it. It is the most delightful space. But I wanted to just bring you a couple of minutes of garden ramblings to share with you what is going on in the world of being indispensable. So, as I alluded to, I took myself off last week to a conference called Social Media Marketing World because it had a big track, well, not a huge track, but it had quite a few sessions on podcasting. And I also thought I would learn a lot from the conference in terms of social media marketing, which is something that I had been considering or I have been toying with as something to occupy myself and generate a bit of income because, as you may know, the podcast is a passion project. It doesn't actually generate any income. Since I resigned from work last year because of my health, I haven't been bringing any income in, and my wonderful husband has been very patient with that, but it'd be good if I could generate some income. And unfortunately, health-wise, I'm just not able to go back to being an EA. So I thought one of the things that I could do is use my skills to provide online marketing execution services, whether that's solopreneurs or small businesses who don't have the time or the skill to be able to do the sort of tactical stuff on social media that you need to do to get, to connect with your audience. So anyway, that's what the social media marketing conference was all about. That's how I justified it. But the other reason I justified it was that I really, really, really wanted to come and visit my friend Sharon, who lives in Palo Alto. And Sharon is a very old friend of mine. And the last time I was here was 5 years ago, prior to a lot of things, but effectively the biggest thing that it was prior to was my breast cancer diagnosis and my treatment. And I have wanted to come over and visit Sharon pretty much since having the breast cancer treatment, but I just haven't been well enough health-wise, and we haven't been in a good enough position, really, finance-wise, personally, to be able for me to justify, zipping off to San Francisco. So I've killed two birds with one stone, is the bottom line. I've been able to come over, skill up in the area of social media marketing, skill up in the area of how I do my podcast, and visit Sharon and hang out with her and enjoy what is an absolutely gorgeous part of the States, Palo Alto and Silicon Valley. And the other thing I've done while I've been here is I've conducted some interviews with executive assistants, which I will be bringing to you in coming weeks. But I'm not going to rush that. I'm going to take my time editing them so that they're all good. And just because I know that you love to hear about my escapades, actually, maybe you don't like to hear about my escapades, but I certainly like to share them with you. So I wanted to share with you how I've come over to the States with my suitcase, and in my suitcase I brought along my recording equipment so that I could record these podcast interviews while I was here. And the other day, during this last week, I've gone about doing the recordings, which has involved going down to visit the respective campuses, they call it, of these organisations. And I can only tell you how hilarious that was, because I was so stressed about doing these interviews, particularly with one of the people that I felt was just this absolute pinnacle of executive assistant. She was up on a pedestal as far as being, her attention to detail and being a true strategic partner and all the things that I talk about on the podcast, but also all the things that we read about make you an indispensable assistant. And the funny thing was that I was given directions in the meeting notice. She told me where to go to have this meeting with her. So I get to the building, and this is in a complex. They call them campuses because it's literally like a university campus. So they are enormous buildings, building after building, all for the same company. And I'm at building 19, which is where I'd been directed to by this executive assistant. I get outside the building and I realise that I can't get into the building. The building is only accessed by a security pass, which I clearly don't have because I'm a visitor, and there's no reception in this building. So I can't even speak to a receptionist to get into the building. So I'm having a mad panic because although I would not rate myself high in some areas that make you a great executive assistant, top of the list being attention to detail. I'm a bit of a fly by the seat of your pants sort of person, and that usually works well. But in this case, the other thing that came up, which I am a real stickler for, is timeliness. I hate being late. Hate being late. And as a result of being outside this building, unable to get into the building, I'm standing there running and the clock is ticking and I'm late. It's already clicked past the time when I was supposed to be meeting this lovely lady for our interview. Because I'm in the States, I had organised global roaming, but I hadn't actually written down her phone number because I thought I'd never actually need to use it because we were communicating via email. I've got no way of calling this woman. Anyway, in the end, ever resourceful, there's a sign on the door for security. So I call security and I explain to them that I'm here to meet this person and I can't get into the building she's told me to come to, and could they please track her down for me? So I wait a few minutes on hold and I get through to her, whereupon she tells me that, oh, I'm so sorry, Liz. I've just realised I've looked at the meeting notice. I've given you the wrong building. You need to be at building 10. Two things happened in my brain. One, I felt immediate relief that it wasn't my fault. B, I felt immediately panicked because I'd passed building 10 on the way to building 19 in the car, and I knew how far away it was. And I knew that to get back to building 10 was going to take me a good 15 minutes on foot because I'd been dropped off. I had no car at that point. I was going to get an Uber home, so I had to walk back to building 10. So exchanging pleasantries on the phone with this lady, telling her that, okay, no problem, I can roll with the punches. I will head back to building 10. I'll be as quick as I can. So there am I, with my microphones and all my equipment, schlepping from building 19 back to building 10 as fast as my little feet would carry me. I had gotten myself all prepared. I was trying to look calm. But by the time I got to building 10, let's just say I looked like I'd had just a massive hot flush. I was hot, I was sweaty, I was frustrated, I was trying to look cool under pressure, and who is outside the building waiting for me with a big smile on her face is this lovely lady. So when you hear the interview, I'll probably talk about it in the introduction, because it was actually a relief when I actually had time to think about it afterwards, and I did say this to her at the end of the interview, that I had been so terrified and I had major imposter syndrome as I was getting ready for this interview. I was really stressed. And in actual fact, having this happen, where I had to schlep from where I'd showed up, I was late, blah, 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 and then talking to her on the phone and realising it wasn't my mistake, it was a mistake on her part. She's fallible. Everyone's fallible. We all make mistakes. And I felt so much better. And I relaxed, and we had a really great interview. There is a slight issue, which you'll hear when you get to the audio of this interview, that because I was so stressed and had schlepped all that way to get across there, when I set up, because I was running very late and I was concerned about how much time we'd have, in the end I stuffed up the microphones anyway, and the audio recorded straight through my MacBook, not through the very expensive microphones and little boombox thing that I have. So when you listen to it, please forgive me for the bad audio. I'm going to get it transcribed so that people who can't even understand it can actually look at the transcription to read what this wonderful woman had to say. Anyway, that's the end of my road ramblings for today, or my garden ramblings. Whilst I've been talking to you, I've been walking around this beautiful garden, which I will put photos on the Facebook page. I may even do a Facebook Live. How rad would that be? Oh, I just used the word rad. I think I'm about 20 years too late with that word. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I'll look forward to bringing you the results of my podcast interviews. And you can chuckle along as you think about me schlepping up the road in my finery, pulling my little wheelie bag behind me and trying not to dissolve into a hot, sweaty mess. Thanks for listening to Being Indispensable. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. Why don't you subscribe so that you get episodes automatically? And I'd love it if you could leave a review. Head on over to my website, beingindispensable.com, for the show notes.